All right, want to welcome in one of my favorite guys, Buccaneers reporters. So smart, way smarter than me. And the breakdowns of the film stuff is awesome. It's Josh Queipo from the PEWTER Report. What's up, partner? How are you?
Hey, JP, I'm doing really well, man. It's good to be on again.
Huge fan of yours. Huge fan of your work. So let's jump right into this. Tristan Wirfs, yesterday we find out something we kind of knew. that knee injury is a little bit more serious than we thought it was. And he's going to miss the first few games. Very interesting to note that during OTAs, we all get out there. It's like everybody's like, is that a knee brace Tristan Wirfs on his knee? Like, wait a minute, where'd that come from? Did he have that last week? Have you seen it? Nope, I haven't seen it. Is that new? Yeah, I think it is new. This is all the reporters. We're all just kind of confirming, like, this is something. And then when we asked Todd Bowles, he was like, oh, it's just precautionary. He'll be fine by training camp. And my spidey sense went off. I'm like, he did not say that with the conviction. I would thought he should say that. So here we learn. The question to you, my friend, is how does this affect the Bucs in the short term and the long term?
Well, short term is they're likely to lose Tristan for at least a quarter of the season, right? Because I think based on Rick Stroud's reporting, he's likely to start the season on the PUP list, and that's 4 games right there. So that's a quarter of your season. You're looking at that week 2 matchup against the Houston Texans. They have a vaunted edge rush between Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter.
Yes.
That's going to be tough to get through without Wirfs. And the Bucs are breaking in a new swing tackle because Justin School left for Minnesota in the offseason. I can understand why School probably wanted to make that move. Christian Darrisaw, Minnesota's left tackle, is still working back from a knee injury of his own, isn't guaranteed to be ready for week 1. So this gave him a defined path to getting some, extended reps on tape. And then, now all of a sudden he could have gotten that with Tampa Bay. So,
yes, he could.
Yeah, Bucs turn to Charlie Heck. He's been with Houston. He's been with San Francisco. I think Arizona as well. Has, I want to say, almost 1,500 career snaps, 23 starts. Not the greatest tape in the world, but if I can give hope to Bucs fans, Justin School didn't have the greatest tape in the world until last year. So I think that's a credit to their offensive line staff. You got Carberry and Bakuchi. They did some great things with School last year. I like to track what I call a 3-game rolling pressure rate allowed, just in terms to get how guys are trending as pass protectors. And you can see with Schools, his went like way down as soon as he got some playing time with the Bucs. And Hex is up there, but I would think that it's going to go down as well as he gets to work with the staff.
Yeah, and I would say that the good news is this happens early enough. It's not like it happens mid-season and you got to scramble and you got to try to put some Band-Aids on some things. This gives Josh Grizzard, the offensive staff, some time to figure out a good strategy, how they can help him, chip blocks, double teams, etc. What they can do and what they can't do in the offense. Tristan Wirfs is, to me, the best left tackle, best offensive lineman in the game. He allows you to do certain things. There are packages in the playbook that depend on his movement and his ability to do things, as it should be. And those things are going to be taken away. So let's talk a little X's and O's here. How does this affect the Bucs offense in these first four games in terms of what they are able to do? And it is a blessing, and they have time to figure this out.
Yeah, I think a couple things. So just from like a package standpoint, everybody's talking about the Bucs, extending their 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers, potentially going to 10 personnel with 4 wide receivers now that they've got this really great depth chart. There's still a good chance that Chris Godwin doesn't start the season ready to go. And if that's the case, then this kind of sets the team up perfectly to maybe be more of a 12 personnel team to start the year. You run out with 2 tight ends. You get Payne Durham, who really showed to be a plus blocker last year. Yep. You get him on the field more and you put him next to Heck, and now you can create some double teams. You can run some play action off of that where you're keeping Durham in as a 6th blocker, and you can create some offense that way. I think you're also going to see probably more tight ends lined up on the left side, just in general, to help Heck. And you're going to probably keep your backs in a little bit more to help protect, at least initially, to figure out whether there's a blitz or he needs a second a helping hand before kicking out into the flat. So But I think that this opens the door for more 12 personnel early, which would allow the Bucs to match up with a trend across the NFL. The NFL has run more 12 personnel last year than in any year since I think 2007, when True Media started tracking that. So it would allow them to align with that.
Interesting. Who would be the other receiver?
So, and that's the thing is, if you're going 12 personnel, you got 2 receivers. McMillan can play that Z role, and so can Egbuka. So you've got Mike in the X, but both of those guys can kind of rotate through.
Yeah.
They can both play that role, and it aligns well with what McMillan can do, even in a 2 receiver set.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, as we bring Egbuka into this is how it affects it. He is cross-trained at all the positions, and Bowles said he's already ready to go at all 3 positions, which is fantastic. So that's that. We don't have many camp battles. I'm like, most of these spots are pretty much given, but that could become one. Who becomes the number 2 receiver in the 12 personnel? And I think it's going to be very interesting, and it's going to make both players better, which I love. So I'm going to throw something at you that I'm just curious what your thoughts might be. Benjamin Chukwuma.
Yep.
Played 2 years at Georgia State, 6'6", 310 pounds. He's a project.
Very much.
Man, this guy's got some sweet feet. I watched him in OTAs, and just from a physical standpoint, he's 6'6", 310, and he is chiseled. And he's an athlete. He grew up playing soccer. This guy gives me some DeMar Dotson vibes. A guy, a basketball player who became an excellent right tackle in the NFL, played for 10 years for the Buccaneers. Mm-hmm. This kid is an athlete, and I know he's raw, but is there any way they could get him ready to play this position, or is it just too much?
I think that would probably be too much, because you mentioned he played the 2 years at Georgia State. That's basically all he's played at football, right? Mm-hmm. He's completely a college convert. What you love about him, you mentioned the physical profile and some of the athleticism. His best game came against Mike Green, who was widely seen as a top 15 pick, except for some off the field issues, caused him to slide in the draft, but he was definitely one of the best edge rushers in the NFL last year. That was some of his best tape. And it wasn't clean, and it wasn't always pretty, but it was effective because he just loves to compete. And that's what you want in a project, is somebody with that will to win and desire to overcome the obstacles that are in front of them. So can he be ready by week 1? I think that's a very tall task. I think Charlie Heck is going to be your week 1 starter at left tackle. But 2-3 years down the line, this could be that swing tackle that you feel really good about if you lose Gedeke for a couple games, if you lose Wirfs for a couple of games, in 2027, 2028.
Yeah, the Bucs don't have a whole lot of tackle depth. Nobody does in this league. But there are some interesting names that recently retired. Ramczyk, I know he's a right tackle. Tyron Smith, so some others. I just don't think it's likely that they come back. But would the Bucs be so desperate as to go looking into that market, or do you think they feel Heck is the guy? He can do it.
I think they feel Heck is the guy. Would it surprise me if they try to bring one of those guys in for camp and see if there's any juice left? It wouldn't surprise me. It's not something that I'm expecting.
Yeah.
What I do think that it poses an interesting dilemma for them is now they need a third tackle for those first 4 games of the season, right? You've moved Heck up to starter role basically for those first 4 games. Who's going to be that swing guy if Heck or Gedeke goes down at the first turn of the season? So that becomes the more interesting thing for me. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring somebody in for that role specifically, not necessarily to supplant Heck as the guy who's going to take over for Tristan while he's out.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens with Tristan. I think there's one other question that people are asking is, why didn't they get this surgery done sooner? I talked about this on the show yesterday, and I think, these are very gray areas, right? Tristan, I see him as kind of a superhero, and he probably thought, it's a little twinge, because so much of this medical evaluation is from the player's feedback, and they're saying, how you feeling? How it feels a little, let's put a brace on it, see what happens. But I'm sure they did lots of MRIs, but you don't see everything. And when they got in there and did the arthroscopic surgery, they went, whoop, that could be an issue. We better go ahead and take care of this now. So I think a lot of people, might think this stuff is very black and white. It's not. It's anything but that. And I think that's the way I would look at it. What are your thoughts on it? Why they didn't do this earlier?
I would agree with that, right? So they didn't. This procedure was not something that they planned for him to be out this long, right? Like you said, they found this. So they were going in for a simple cleanup that they thought he would probably be ready by camp. That's why they scheduled it for the time that they did. And something completely unexpected jumped out at them. By nature, unexpected is not to be expected.
Exactly.
So it's difficult to say, like, you can't prepare for every eventuality. And in hindsight, would the Bucs probably have said, well, we would have loved to have done this in, beginning of June or late May? Sure. But this was, again, something that was not foreseen.
Yeah. All right. I wanted to get to other couple other things. This week, you did some articles for PEWTER Report on expected production from some of the offensive players and defensive players. Let's start with the offense. And I know you had some of Baker's numbers going down a little bit, and I totally agree with that because last year was a ridiculously good season. I think there's only 4 quarterbacks in history that's put up 4,500 plus yards, 70 plus percentage, and 41 touchdowns. I mean, it's an outlier. To expect that again, I think is foolish. No matter, and it doesn't mean he's going to be worse. The offense could be more productive with him throwing for less yards. I think they'll run the football more. So tell me a little about what you expect from this offense with everybody coming back except Tristan Wirfs, and maybe this affects some of the projections a little bit.
Yeah. So now with anytime I'm doing projections, the object is to figure out what's the most likely path. So when you have a career year, I'm going to come down from a career year. Just like on defense with Jamel Dean, he's coming off of a career year in terms of least amount of games played. Well, I'm expecting that to actually go up, right? So you kind of bring things back towards the mean and you look for some directional signal as far as how far you come back to the center. With Baker, I do expect them to be leading late in games more because I expect the defense to be better. Right. And so because of that, you're going to have less attempts. The other thing that I'm projecting for is just, it's a very physical game. Quarterbacks get hit a lot. They don't always play all 17 games. Baker is an absolute warrior. Some of the things that he has played through would make me crawl up in a corner and cry. But at some point, there's a good chance that he's going to miss some time. And so I think in my projections, I kind of looked at it as he potentially misses a game. And so with that, you get less attempts, less completions, less yards, less touchdowns. So I think the big thing there is that I had his yards per attempt going up a little bit, his completion percentage going up, which I think surprised a lot of people because the Bucs have talked about being a bit more vertical. And the reason why I have his completion percentage going up is he has actually been not very efficient on the vertical throws when he's attempted them since he's gotten to Tampa Bay. And I think that is something that'll actually get a little bit better. So just better completion percentage on those verticals and slightly better completion percentages on everything underneath that. So better efficiency, if you will, and less interceptions. I think most Bucs fans would be happy with that overall, even if it means less volume.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as, Wirfs' injury, how does it affect? I think you'll see, sure, they want to get more vertical. Maybe they adjust that in the first 4 games because that takes more protection, longer time to develop, and maybe they go more with the quick game. I think that would be super smart. Everybody, that's so if even though they may, want to be more vertical this year, I think in the early in the season, I would say probably not, just because of the backside protection that is needed. That would be playing into the hands of the opponent. So I don't see that happening. Bucky Irving, how do you think it gets split between Rachaad White? It's funny because now as you look at everything, it's like, oh, what about Wirfs? So now you're saying maybe Rachaad White's going to play a lot more to help out in pass blocking, pass protection.
Yeah, exactly that. I still think that there's a pretty like a 60-40 split in snaps between Irving and Rachaad. And I know a lot of fans get a little upset with that because they see this big disparity in the talent level between the two. Bucky is by far the better runner. But Rachaad does something that very few backs in the NFL do at a high level, and that is pass protect. And that is, like you said, that's going to be extremely key while Wirfs is out, is making sure that Baker remains clean. And one of the things that I love about the Bucs offense is, especially in those pass obvious situations, they commit assets to keeping Baker clean. He was one of the least pressured quarterbacks in the NFL last year, especially on third downs. And part of that was because they do this thing. It's a McVay sniffer where they literally took Rachaad White and occasionally even Bucky Irving, put him right off of Graham Barton's ass in the A gap against mugged up looks and said, you are not going to get to Baker straight up the middle.
Right.
You're going to have to come around our bookends, right? And in doing that, it allowed Baker to be at his best on third down and in those pass obvious situations. So overall, I have Bucky going for over 1,000 yards. It would be only the third time in the history of the franchise that a back has gone back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons,
wow.
Which I think is pretty cool. I have him with slightly, like ever so slightly more carries. And I think even you had mentioned it on the Pewter Report podcast with Scott. You were a little like, well, that doesn't seem right because that's still only like 14 carries a game. I do have Bucky missing a few games, just with his size, his stature, and then also with them leading late. I think that the Bucs probably sit there and go fourth quarter, Bucky, you're not getting those carries, right? We're going to save you because we want you in week 19. We want you in week 20. We want you in week 21. Those are the playoff weeks. And so I think there will be some load management late in games when the Bucs are leading.
By the way, I wanted to mention this again too. Over passing yards for Baker, 3,800, according to Vegas. I'm going over, right? You like over. Touchdowns, 29.5. Over. Okay. Bucky, 1,025 yards rushing.
I got him over that. Yeah.
Yeah. 7.5 touchdowns.
Over. I think I got him at 12.
Yeah. I think all these are pretty easy. And they've been easy the last couple of years, by the way. Bucs wins, division titles, all those stuff, been pretty good. Thank you, Buccaneers. Here's the easiest one, I think. Mike Evans, 950 yards over under.
Yeah, I'll take the over on that.
If I'm going to lose, so be it. Be it. That's one of those like, oh, okay, whatever. That means if he doesn't get 950, it means he's going to miss 6 games. And I don't think that's going to happen this year. Well, we'll see. 7.5 touchdowns.
I've got him at 11. Take that
Come on. So anyway, if you want to make some money, I think of all those, what are those 6 props right there? If you don't go 4 for 6 on that, I don't know. So, all right, defensively, your thoughts on? Gosh, I'm so tantalized by this defense and the changes that they've made, and and it's all talk at this point. But man, Bowles has said all the right things. Well, I don't want them playing off anymore. They're not supposed to play off anymore. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So more aggressive corner play, no cushion, bringing in 2 guys in Morrison and Parrish that love to be physical at the line of scrimmage. I mean, this all tells me this defense is going to be a hell of a lot different than the soft-ass defense we saw last year. And then Servassier playing the middle hopefully takes away the great wide open from last year. It's just I'm very intrigued. And then Hassan Reddick. Man, I just love this signing. The more and more I look at it and watching him in training camp, and I know it's just shorts, but that dude, he moves differently. He's quick as a cat, and he's kind of built sneaky, powerful. All these things to me say this ain't going to be the 29th ranked pass defense this year. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that they did a great job of adding depth to the secondary, which is where they were hemorrhaging players last year. I do think that Servassier is a huge upgrade over KJ Britt. And even if he doesn't play a full season, Anthony Walker Jr., Deion Jones, these are guys who know where they need to be on the field. And I think that's something, and they have the enough athleticism, certainly more than KJ Britt, to be at the spots that they need to be in. I think Reddick is the real wild card for the defense. If you look at defensive trends, Todd Bowles has always been a blitz heavy guy. You shouldn't expect him to stop being a blitz heavy guy, but I think it's situational. The best defenses, most of the best defenses in the NFL last year were blitzing on early downs. The Bucs blitzed on early downs. That's something you want them to continue to do. It's a way that they can challenge play action. It's how they were able to create 3rd and longs because they were still stout against the run early. It's the late downs where a lot of those really good defenses last year, the Vikings are a great example. Everybody talks about how, they were the Mad Hatter in terms of their blitzes, but Brian Flores on 3rd down, he was league average at blitz rate. So he backed off and just let it 4 down and go. I'm going to dedicate 7, maybe even 8 resources into coverage. And that's something that Bolts just couldn't do. The front four last year was not consistent enough at getting home.
Zero pressure.
And because of that, Bowles had to keep sending Levante or KJ or the slot blitz. And I don't blame him for it, because if you can't get home with 4, you're going to get toasted. So he leaned into the one thing that worked a decent amount. And down the back half of the year, from the bye week on, they were a top 5 defense. Now, the quality of opponent was not the greatest. We all know that. But you play who you play. And it worked. It got them to the playoffs. Okay. So if Reddick can help elevate not only that position over JTS, which I think easy to expect that, but also give a lift to Kalijah Cansey and Vita Vea, and Yaya takes another step, you're getting home with 4 on third down. The biggest thing is your linebackers aren't having to cover as much ground, because you have one more person in coverage.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, what I would love to see the Bucs, everybody talks about them going to more man coverage, cover 1. Yes, I think that that's a foregone conclusion. I want to see more rotations. I think with the corners that are slotted to be their starters right now, Jamel Dean and Zion McCollum, you can add Morrison to this. They're strong enough in run defense, and they can play really well at the line of scrimmage. You can rotate into some really fun Tampa 2 looks. You can play a little bit more quarters. There's a lot of things that they can rotate into and change the picture for quarterbacks after the snap that can create more confusion.
Great stuff. Josh Queipo, one of the smartest guys in the business, one of my faves. You can find all his work at Pewter Report. And how can they follow you on Twitter? What's your handle?
Josh_Queipo. It's QUEIPO on Twitter. And that's where most of my stuff's going. If you're on Blue Sky, I'm on that as well. But that's where you can find me for the social media.
Awesome stuff. Josh, thank you for your time, partner. Appreciate it.
You too, bud.
All right.